So my name is Simone Laudino. I'm an Italian national. I've been living in Hong Kong since 2008. And I started being involved in this initiative in 2010 when I was working and studying at Hong Kong University. It was a sort of coincidence how I got involved into mutual understanding between different religions. And how we got the first event up was really out of a coincidence. I was given a course to teach that was about European history and European politics. It is in fact a very, very general course about European culture. And one of the classes was about religion. And the texts that were given to the students pertain to different sacred texts, so to the Bible, to the Torah, and to the Quran. And what I noticed is that the extracts that were given to the students from this different book made reference to very different examples. And some of them, at least seemed to me, that made reference much more to violence than the others. So I thought it was a sort of bit unfair to give just one snapshot about each religion and such a different snapshot for each of them. So we started a bit of a chat about that with the professor that had set up the course itself and colleagues. Well, some had the same feelings, some others said, yes, it is indeed like that, but it is like that because that reflects exactly what you find in this text. And then a huge discussion began back then. I think it went on for a few hours that afternoon, and at the end of the evening, I think it was more evening than afternoon, someone said, well, you should set up a dialogue if you're that interested into this. And that's how we got it rolling. Not only in this part of the world, but almost everywhere, people come with certain perceptions about religions, not only about religions, but about cultures, about nationalities, but I think particularly so for religions. So it was certainly the case in Hong Kong regarding a certain number of religions. And I think particularly when thinking about religion and violence, it was one specific event we had. After looking at the topics, we reached out to the churches that could be easily reached. So in Hong Kong, typically you have a very strong Muslim community. The Jewish community is very, very present, very well organized. Hong Kong University has got a very strong Buddhist center, so we thought about involving the Buddhist center into this, and the Christians, of course, that have been here for a very long time.
My name is Hin Ho. I'm a Buddhist monk from the Mahayana traditions. I am currently the director of the Center of Buddhist Studies in the University of Hong Kong.
My name is Rabbi Asher Ozer. I'm from Australia, and I've been the rabbi here at Ohalea Synagogue in Hong Kong since 2010. I serve the Jewish community here. I'm blessed to serve the Jewish community here, to teach people about Judaism, to represent Judaism to the broader community as well.
I'm Anna. I'm an architect by profession, and I'm a Catholic. I was baptized 50 years ago.
My name is Muhammad Arshad. I'm Chief Imam Hong Kong here in Hong Kong, in the largest masjid, largest mosque of Muslim community here in Hong Kong, working here since 2001.
You find lots of interfaith dialogue, interreligious dialogue that try to find common grounds among religions, and that's certainly something good. But also to a certain extent is a way of sweeping things that don't work between culture and religion under the carpet, just pretending that everything works well, that we have so many things in common, that everything looks great, that you can always find some common things. And what we tried to do straight from the beginning, it was to be a bit more realistic. Is that really the case? Is it true that people can get along so easily even when they come from different cultures?
The Buddha was born 2,500 years ago. He was a prince. And then while he was a prince, he has this insight into humanity, that humanity is full of suffering. And so he see that this suffering is, no matter what we do, is still here. So he started out to looking for a way to end suffering. And on his path for looking for this way to end suffering, he became enlightened and he found the path to ending suffering. So you can say what Buddhism is. It's a religion about ending suffering and hoping for people to attain sustainable and true happiness.
Judaism believes in a God who created heaven and earth and who takes interest in the world, is concerned for the world. One of the defining aspects of Judaism is the story of the Exodus, of the story of a people who were enslaved and then went free, and we are charged to bring that message to the rest of the world, to remember that we were slaves in the land of Egypt, and therefore we should have sympathy and empathy for other people who face similar struggles. We, of course, believe also in as I said, the God who created the heaven and the earth. We believe in the Bible, the Hebrew Bible, what Christians call the Old Testament. We don't believe it's old. We think it's still fresh and relevant.
Christianity started more than 2,000 years ago, and we believe in Jesus Christ, and who Jesus Christ died for us, and his crucifixion saved the world.
The literal meaning of Islam is submission to God and peace. And Muslim is the one who follow the religion of Islam, means Quran and the practices of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him.
People come with very large stereotypical images about national communities and about religions. Typically what you have are people from the public that raise these issues. So you have people from the Muslim community, for example, that they feel that they are pointed at because of the alleged linkages between the sacred text in Islam and violence. People in Judaism that gets very touchy every time the issue of Israel is brought up. I don't think the issue of Buddhism and management of politics in Myanmar was ever brought up, but we sort of sense that there were red areas or no-go areas also for the Buddhists. So what happens is that even if you try to organize things in such a way that there is no controversial statement coming from the side of the participants directly on these topics, typically you would have someone from the public that brings it up. And what you find, what I notice is very interesting, those that become more sort of apologetic, or they tend to spend words from the other perspective, are not those from the church that is sort of under attack, but those coming from other denominations. So you have a sort of race between these different attendants in trying to see things from the perspective of the religion that is under attack. And I think that this is a very useful exercise. Very broad spectrum of issues that we consider we can deal with. We try to get people that we see as independent, as coming without an agenda, aside from wanting to better understand other culture and share about their own culture. That they certainly don't come to serve any specific organization interest. And in doing that, in that exercise, we try to look in different directions. So we look at churches, we look at academia, we look at diplomacy. Some of the invitees we had were coming from that world. We look in different directions. Now, what happens is that in this, you have interfaith dialogues all over the world, and is a pretty fairly well-established machine, if you want. So in this world, you also have a number of organizations that are out there with an agenda, with a scope, with a purpose, and very often they come well-funded. So for us, it has become important to try to distinguish who's coming just with that genuine belief, genuine willingness of sharing and understanding and participating to the dialogue, and who's coming just because he's doing his or her job. And I think we got better over the years. I think at the beginning, it was not always easy to understand who was there for what. Now we have a number of partners we've been working with along these 4 or 5 years that we certainly trust. Most of them, they're based in Hong Kong, but also elsewhere. We have a fairly strong academic network we can rely on. Usually, not always, but usually academic are a safe bet when it comes to intellectual honesty, to openness, to genuinity coming without an agenda. So the first event was on religion and violence. And I think it coincided with an anniversary of 9/11. I believe it was the 10th anniversary of 9/11. And the idea was again to have representative of different religious denominations to sit down and openly and candidly, if I might say, talk about an argument which is violence, which is usually avoided. And talk about it in such a way that they could acknowledge that yes, in their religious tradition there is a reference, there are many references in fact, to violence. And it would be absolutely useless to just try hiding that, because it's there. So the conversation at one point shifted from whether there is a reference on violence, yes there is a reference on violence, to how do you interpret that? And why certain people in certain part of the world seems to take that more literally than other people in other part of the world. People representing certain religions do sometimes exploit those references to violence for interests that can be related to politics, to factionism, to economic interests sometimes. And getting that openly acknowledged and openly recognized is already something very good, I would say. You have lots of people that comes with preconception about religion, about communities, about specific cultures, and lots of these commonplaces, lots of these common perceptions are misperception, in fact. So we wanted to clear the ground to that to a certain extent with respect to all religious communities. On the other side, yes, you have a number of religions that promote behaviors and understanding and cultures that are not perceived as morally viable by other standards. And we also wanted to bring that up. So we thought on the one side, yes, we want to clear out very easy misperception, very easy misconception, very trivial, I would say. The idea that people pertaining to certain religion are all in favor of terrorism, people pertaining to other religion are only after money, people pertaining to another religion are only interested in peace. We wanted to clear the ground to all those misperceptions, but we also wanted to give an opportunity for people to discuss specific historical cases, both historical and contemporary cases, in which religions are playing a role that is not always positive. And we wanted a forum in which that could be openly discussed.
To many people, Buddhism is certainly a religion. We have our own teachings on life, why we are here, and life after death. So to many people, Buddhism is a religion. Furthermore, Buddhism to many people is also a philosophy. How we should live, why we should be compassionate, why we should be how should we deal with other interpersonal relationships? Obviously, there are many types of Buddhists. What we say the Theravadan Buddhists that are in Sri Lanka and Thailand and that part of the countries. Their practices to meditations, chanting, and things like that. For us, Buddhists from in the Chinese traditions, we have our own practice, we have our own chanting, and meditations. So our source of teachings is from the text, and the text came from the Buddha himself. He himself was actually lived 2,600 years ago in India. He became enlightened, and then by his own enlightenment, he was able to teach. And then from his teaching, we compile into Buddhist sutra, or Buddhist text. And these texts can trace all the way back to 2,500 years ago from what the Buddha said. Before I was living in China, Before in China, there's only Chinese Buddhism, and not too many Christianity or Muslim. But now, because of internet, airplane, communications, you cannot be isolated anymore. You need to be face to face with other people. You cannot block yourself out. So, because the world is flat, your neighbor will be believing in some other religions. Maybe your daughter or your father or somebody in your family may be believing in something else. I think that is something that we cannot turn back. So, learning to be living together with other religions is a must. And in order to be living close to each other and not fighting each other, is that we need to know the other guy, what they have in mind, what they believe in, and what is their culture. So only by knowing other people and understanding other people, we build friendship, companionships, and understanding. I think in order for the world to go on harmoniously, to be a peaceful atmosphere, I think religion, having dialogue is very important. I think many of the wars started by religion, and I don't think that's right. Today is very special for me. Today is what we call the birthday of Gunsayam Posat, or Avalokitesvara. It's his birthday today. In Chinese, we chant his name in this way. Namo Guan Si Yin Pu Sai, 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 Guan 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 Yin Pu Sai. Now, she also have a mantra, and I'll recite the mantra for you. Om Mani Padme Hum, Mani Padme Hum, Om 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 Mani Padme
we believe in a God who gives commandments. That central to the Jewish faith is the idea of a mitzvah. A mitzvah literally means a commandment. When one has a commandment, that means there is a being who commands, which is God, and then there is a being, the human being, who is commanded to follow. We believe there are 613 broad commandments. Some of them no longer apply today and no longer practiced today, but broadly speaking, they govern the way we eat, they govern our week, our calendar, to rest on the Sabbath day, to observe the various holidays. They govern how we conduct ourselves in our private lives with our spouses. Prayer is something that is very important to Judaism. Traditionally, prayer is ideally done in a communal setting where there are 10, it's usually 10 men who make up a prayer quorum, and we pray 3 times a day. And around the world, synagogues are open for services 3 times a day. This synagogue is proud to be open for services 3 times a day as well. So the focal point of the community life is to be a Jew, is to be part of a community that is bigger than oneself. It's not a faith that is just practiced in private. It is a faith that is practiced as part of the community. The Abrahamic faiths, right, between Judaism, Christianity, Islam, what do they share in common and what is different? On the one hand, if you walk into a synagogue and see how people worship, how people pray, and you walk into a church, you walk into a mosque, you'll see that people worship in very different ways. If you look at the Jewish holidays and you look at the Christian holidays and you look at the Muslim holidays, you'll see that they are very different. Of course, even within these religions, there are various differences. So certainly if you were to step back and try to compare the religions, one will find significant differences. Having said that, there are common threads, I think, that they share, that we all share. And I don't think that you can't be a great religion operating in the world for a very long time without bringing good to the world. Christianity and then Islam, they can be viewed almost as the daughter religions of Judaism. With Christianity, we share a holy book, we share the Bible, at least the first part of the Hebrew Bible we share with Christianity. And of course with Islam, we share a common theology, I would say. Both of us are committed to a certain conception of monotheism, which is very important to both religions. There is a great interfaith community in Hong Kong, and I would say that's thanks to some of the fantastic spiritual leadership that exists in this city. It's also thanks to the type of city that we are blessed to call home. Hong Kong is a place where anybody can come in. It's a place that is open. It is a place where minority faiths have had a long tradition, have been part of the fabric of Hong Kong society. And so it's only natural that interfaith activities should blossom over here. For that reason, I feel that we have a responsibility. We have a responsibility to make it happen here because the whole world comes to Hong Kong. And hopefully they go back to their home countries if they're expats and they say, you know what? In Hong Kong it's different. In Hong Kong it's possible. And therefore it's possible over here as well. Why should I care about interfaith activities? And it's true that only an advanced theologian, a professional theologian, can perhaps gain from the type of specialized academic comparative religious study that is on offer in universities. But in the world today, there is so much fighting, so much blood being spilt perhaps because of religion. Therefore, when people of faith get together, it's not about coming up with a more sophisticated understanding of my religion or a more sophisticated understanding of somebody else's religion. There's a much, much simpler goal, and that is, let's just find a way to get along. For me, that is the goal of interfaith activity, that we should be able to pick up the phone to one another in good times and in bad times and say, how are you? I care about you. I share this planet with you. We need to find a way to get along. You don't have to agree with me on everything, and I don't have to agree with you on everything, but we need to find a way to get along. We need to have mutual respect. In the 4th chapter of the book of Genesis, God turns to Cain and says, Vayomer Hashem el Cain, God says to Cain, Ei hevel achicha, where is your brother Abel? And what does Cain say? He says, Lo yadati, I don't know. Cain is the first murderer that the Bible has. First person we know who killed somebody else. And when God asks him, where is your fellow man? He says, I don't know. We need to make sure that we don't repeat those words of Cain, those words of Cain. That when God asks us, where is your brother? We're able to say, I know where my brother is. And we're able to feel some sort of responsibility for and kinship toward other people. For no man is an island. For no person is an island.
All religions teach us to be good. So in Christianity, we practice is not just good enough just to say that I'm a Catholic, I'm a Christian. Put your words into practice. So we have to love our neighbors, to help them, and to be true. Interfaith dialogues is very important because it will help to break down communication gap. It will bridge the differences, and that's very important. Also, it will create respect to all the religions and among the faithfuls. And this is very important in the modern day world to move the generations to one another, closer, to close the gap. The interfaith in Hong Kong, the dialogue among the 6 religions started actually in 1977. These 6 religions are Catholics, Christian, Buddhists, Islam, and Taoism, and Confucianism. So all these 6 representatives from these 6 religions, they started to group together and start the communication. So it grows gradually into the Jubilee years, and now in 2015. This practice is still going on, and they have regular meetings. The topics that take place among the 6 religions in Hong Kong include core values, communications, problems that are most critical now facing the community. For example, poverty. For example, how to iron out the minority, the differences. So all these are the topics that are discussed, among the 6 religions. For interfaith dialogue, in future or in the near future, I would like to see mutual respect, tolerance, adaptability. We know how to adapt ourselves to different environment, and love. A Catholic Church welcomes everybody, and it opens the door, and anybody walking into the church are all welcome. If I meet a friend who is not from my Catholic faith, I will respect him or respect her. And I find that I have a lot to learn from him or from her. And I respect her belief, his belief, and it is only in, trying to find out from one another, we carry out interfaith dialogue. Between two persons. That's really interesting. Yes. One of my favorite prayer is the prayer of St. Francis of Assisi. And I would like to share with everybody. And it goes on like that. Lord, make me an instrument of thy peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, let me sow pardon. Where there is doubt, let me sow faith. Where there is despair, let me sow hope. Where there is darkness, let me give light. And where there is sadness, let me give joy. O Divine Master, grant that I may not try to be comforted, but to comfort, to be understood as to understand, to love as to love. For it is in giving that we receive, and it is in forgiving that we are forgiven, and it is in dying that we are born to eternal life.
And we believe there is only one God. If someone believes in him or not, he is God for everyone, because he is a creator and he is the sustainer. We believe in him. We believe in prophets. So God has sent his prophets to different nations in a different period of times, and they are all worthy of respect and honor. So we believe in them. The first prophet was Adam, and the last prophet is Muhammad. And there are 4 important books, or you can say the holy books. One is Torah, Old Testament. The Christian says Old Testament, but the Jew, they believe it is in practice, Torah. And second is Zabur, that was given to Prophet David, and it is consisting of the prayers. And the third is Injil, the guideline that was given to Prophet Jesus. And Prophet Jesus is the second last prophet of God. As we believe, after Jesus, 571 years, the Prophet Muhammad is born. So Prophet Muhammad is the last prophet of God. The different sects in Islam is not a phenomena which is only for Islam. Any religion of the world that exists, and in practice you can find differences in sect. Islam is among the major religions, youngest religion. And the religion before Islam is Christianity, Judaism, Hinduism, Buddhism. And today, if you go anywhere, any place, you can find different sect, different opinion, different views within the religion. The interpretation of the Holy Book Quran in some verses is different from each other. So this is the difference among Sunni and Shia. We have to accept with the differences each other. I know he is the Christian, he is the Jew, he is Hindu, and he has this belief and faith, he has this belief and faith, he has this belief and faith. But there will be common grounds on morality, on goodness and good actions, so we can come together. When you will not sit with other people of faith, how you will understand them? So it is a need of time. We have to understand each other. Hate is not the teaching of any religion. I can say the gist of the whole religion is worshipping God and following Prophet Muhammad and serving the humanity. I appreciate some student and professor of Hong Kong University. They organize on university levels, and they were much appreciated. Islam, being a religion, has discussed about other faith, and the people who are not Muslim and they are following the Christianity and the Jew, Quran has not given the bad name. Quran has given the people of book. When Quran says people of book, book means the book that was given from God to them. So it means Quran expressing differences with them, but at the same time recognizing them. Islam is a religion which has given the concept that all the people of the world, they are from single root and they are from Adam and Eve. So there is no classification superior than other. There is no inferior than other. If superiority is based on practice and education and service to mankind. And the Prophet Jesus' name is mentioned more than 40 times. And Prophet Muhammad name is mentioned 4 times. The attributes are mentioned. Quran is not talking only Prophet Muhammad. Quran has mentioned the lengthiest story, the detailed story is the story of Moses, story of Joseph, story of Jesus, the birth, the young age, the death. Death means raising to the heaven, because we believe Jesus is not dead. Jesus will come again to this world. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل يا أهل الكتاب تعالوا إلى كلمة سواء بيننا وبينكم ألا نعبد إلا الله ولا نشرك به شيئا ولا يتخذ بعضنا بعضا أربابا من دون الله فإن تولوا فقولوا اشهدوا بأننا مسلمون. صدق الله العظيم. In this verse of the Holy Book Quran, God, Allah is inviting the people of book, Christian and Jew, to come together, and we should worship to Allah, and we should not associate anyone with Him, and we can come on the common ground. So this is the message, still exists, we have to follow.
For the future, we have a number of topics we are thinking about. They are all somehow related to the issue of cohabitation, because that's really the ultimate goal of these dialogues and of Bridging Gap, which is the not-for-profit organization that is bringing forward these dialogues in Hong Kong. So we had a number of results out of these discussions. I think the most visible are the fact that representative of different institutions and churches here in Hong Kong, now they are sort of in contact, they tend to organize events more regularly, even if this dialogue at Hong Kong University is only happening once a year. We can see interest in people in trying to institutionalize this dialogue and bringing that forward in Hong Kong. We have been thinking about what is specific about this organization and about this place, and we came to the conclusion that there are very few places in Asia. Let's say someone suggested us the expression, in the space between India and Australia, there are not many places where you can have this kind of very open dialogue without fearing for interferences from the government, for example. And that's certainly a peculiarity of this dialogue. And also, as I was mentioning before, the fact that we particularly tackle issues that we consider as controversial, issues that are not dealt by others. So we had great satisfaction in seeing people that were involved into this since the beginning, in gaining confidence among themselves, gaining trust among themselves. We see this as a first building step, a sort of trust-building measure for more dialogue in the future, more interchanges, more cultural exchanges, and I would invite people to actually engage with the activity of our NGO, Bridging Gap. Come visit us on www.bridginggap.org. We are trying to set up something that is a bit more permanent and a bit more regular than the once a year seminar, conference or event that we are holding. So please come engage, please promote intercultural, interethnic, interfaith dialogue in Hong Kong.